Alright, listen up everybody, cause today we're looking at Nioh. Not Nioh the protagonist of the Matrix films, not Nioh the professional Counter-Strike player, and not Nioh the singer who gave us such hits as Miss Independent, So Sick, and Because of You, but this Nioh, which is a recent Dark Souls inspired RPG developed by Team Ninja. And before I get into this review, being totally honest, putting my hands up, cards on the table, penis in the I haven't finished Nioh yet, but that is not from lack of trying. This is just a ridiculously long game. I read somewhere that just doing the main missions can take anywhere from 60 to 80 hours, and if you do all the side missions too, it can take you well over 100 hours. I played as much as I could all of last week, and in the end I was only able to get up to the Ogress boss fight. I'm not sure how far in that is, but regardless, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on the game, so whatever, just leave your comment telling me I'm a dickhead and I shouldn't be reviewing this game now, and let's just get on with it. So in Nioh, you play as William, a man who looks surprisingly quite a lot like Geralt from the Witcher games. He starts out in a prison, but quickly breaks out with the help of his spirit guardian, but then his spirit guardian gets captured by this friendly looking fellow called Edward Kelly. 2 years later, Edward has travelled to an island infested with monsters, and I don't mean the energy drink. So William follows him there so he can find him and get his spirit guardian back. Now, being honest with you guys, I didn't really care too much about the story. I didn't find it boring at all. In fact, it's got some pretty interesting and funny moments. But there's also a lot going on in it. Basically, the second William arrives on the island, he gets roped up in this big war between these two dudes who are fighting for power, and new characters get introduced quite a lot, and I could never remember who was who. Oh shit, is that racist? I just never really felt invested in the game's story, but really I don't think that's a big deal because the story isn't the main focus, it's the gameplay we're all here to see. Like I said before, Nioh's gameplay is heavily inspired by Dark Souls, and usually whenever a Dark Souls inspired game gets made, the creators will tone down the difficulty significantly so they can make it more accessible. I'm looking at you, Lords of the Fallen. But apparently, Team Ninja didn't get that particular memo because Nioh is really fucking hard. It's harder than Jennifer Aniston's nipples in that one episode of Friends. I like that one. Yeah, Nioh is a really tough game and it controls very well. It's the standard Dark Souls setup. You run through a level with tough enemies, find save points and die a lot until you find the boss fight and die a lot. Again. Except instead of having one big world with different areas, like in Dark Souls, Nioh goes for a level selector, and I really like the level design. They're all big and expansive, with secrets and hidden areas to find, and they all feel very different from one another, which just makes them even more memorable in my opinion. And speaking of memorable, the bosses are memorable as well. From what I can tell, a lot of them are inspired by Japanese folklore, and I loved the designs of basically every boss I saw. Whether I was able to beat them on my first try, or whether I was barely able to beat them on my 50th try, fighting these bosses was always a lot of fun. Well, actually no, fighting them was incredibly frustrating and rage-inducing, but beating them was more satisfying than popping all the bubble wrap in the world. The combat works really well too. No matter what weapon you use, you always have the ability to switch from a high stance, a mid stance, or a low stance. These stances change up how you attack and dodge. The high stance is the strong but slow one, the low stance is the fast but weak one, and the mid stance is the in-betweeny one. I like how you can change what stance you want to do at any time, but to be honest with you, I basically just stuck with the mid stance throughout most of the game because it was working well for me and I kinda forgot the other ones existed, but still, nice to have options. One of my favourite things about Nioh is how it uses stamina, or ki in this case. You're not the only one with a ki bar anymore, now every enemy you fight, including the boss fights, has one too. I fucking love this mechanic because now the fights are just as much about managing your opponent's stamina as managing yours. This adds a whole new layer of difficulty and strategy to the game. It makes the fights way more tense and interesting. They used to just have one bar above their head, but now they have 2 bars. What the fuck? This game is blowing my mind! Also, the living weapon thing, where after your spirit guardian meter is full, you can empower your weapon and not take any damage for a short amount of time, that was fucking cool and super useful, especially for boss fights. So yeah, in conclusion, Nioh is a great game. I personally wasn't too interested in the story, story, but the great level design, interesting bosses, and tough yet deep fighting system more than makes up for it. If you're a Dark Souls fan, I cannot recommend this game enough to you, and if you've never played a Dark Souls game, then you should, because they're awesome. And this game is awesome too, so I say good job, Team Ninja. Now you guys can go back to making Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. There's some joke in here about this being a hard game, but hard as in like, you know what, never mind. Nioh is a freaking massive game, and one that I fully intend on finishing soon. Unless it gets too hard, in which case I probably won't bother.